So today we're going to be doing a coolant change on a Suzuki DRZ400. This is the E or Enduro model, which means it's got a bit more of an off-road bias. It's not road legal in some places, it is road legal in others, but it's yeah, the model with the more of an off-road bias, a little bit less refined. So, points worth remembering. The filler cap, the coolant filler cap, is behind this side fairing. You can just see it on top of the radiator there. So to fill it up easily, we're going to need to take out the 3 screws and remove this side fairing. So I'll be doing that in a minute. And the drain screw is down here, and it's just in behind that cover. So we're going to need to take off this little side cover as well. It's very easy, no problems. Also, there's an expansion tank, which the book does say to drain, and it's just down on the left-hand side here. But I do my coolant changes quite regularly, and there's often very little in the expansion tank. So unless yours is full of really dirty coolant, then I wouldn't bother with it. Up to you if you want to. If you do want to, you can just see the bottom hose there. But up to you either way. You'll just need to put the drain pan under the swing arm and catch any coolant if you want to drain that one. So, things you'll need to do this easily. What I've done is I've made myself a funnel, and it's just out of a washing up liquid bottle, and I've just put a bit of clear hose that's pushed over the end of it, and that makes it really easy to fit in past that fairing. Sorry, not past the fairing, to fitting behind the tank. I probably could do it actually with the fairing, side fairing fitted, but just to make it easier for the video to see it, I'll take it off anyway. And then you'll just need something to drain the old coolant into, and also another plastic bottle, milk bottle or anything. I'll show you why we need this in a minute. So, to start with, I'll get on and I'll remove this side fairing. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's 3 screws holding this side fairing on. So you'll need an 8mm socket on either a ratchet or a screwdriver. They shouldn't be tight. So, it's 1, 2, and number 3. And just remember there's 3 little special washers in behind the bolts which help centralise the fairing and stop it splitting the plastic, so just try and retrieve those. So that's all loose now, and that should just lift off, and there's the radiator. And just worth mentioning that I actually put a fan on this bike myself. I don't know how well you can see it in there, just a bit of a mad inventor project, but yeah, your E-model, I'm very unlikely to have this, so yeah, don't be confused if you're wondering why you haven't got a fan. Okay, let's get on and remove that lower guard there. Right, so yeah, you'll need a 12mm socket for these 2 bolts that hold this little side lower guard on. Now, I've already loosened them with a ratchet because they were a bit tight, and I've got to use one hand to hold the camera, so they've already been pre-loosened. So just undo. There's one. Ooh, what was that? Oh, just a bit of tree branch or something came off then. Bit of bark. There we go. So that's the fairing, sorry, guard removed. And there's your 2 bolts. And now we can see we've got access to the bleed screw. So on with the next stage. Okay, so now we've got access to this bleed screw, which is this one here. We need an 8mm socket to undo it. So what's going to happen is we'll undo it and then it'll just dribble out. Not much will come out because it's creating a bit of a vacuum. It won't start flowing until we release pressure at the top of the system. Now the book says to undo the bleed screw, which is on the other side, on the left hand side. I just see it there on the left hand side, radiator tank. Now I've got a temperature gauge added to this bike, which the pickup goes into the left hand bleed screw at the top of the tank, so I don't really want to disturb that, and I found a bit of an easier method anyway. So once you've undone that lower screw, then you can release pressure at the filler cap. What will happen there though is once you've released it, suddenly there won't be a vacuum in the top anymore, and the fluid will just jet out to the side and go all over the garage floor. So what we do to stop that is we get our other plastic bottle, milk bottle in this case, we cut a hole in the side, take the cap off, and then undo that bleed screw, cover it with the hole in the side of the milk bottle, and then when you release the cap, rather than squirting coolant all over the garage floor, it's just going to hit the side of the bottle and then run down into the collecting pan. It's a bit hard to do this one-handed, but I'll try and show you what I mean. So 8mm socket on a ratchet just to crack the bleed screw. Oh, there we go. And see, hardly anything, hardly a drop. So when I release that pressure, it'll really start to come out. I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but I'll try and wedge that up against there with my knee. Oops, my knee, so I can show you. No, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take my word for it. So I've got it. Okay, I've got it wedged there with my knee, and I just release this now. You'll see what I mean. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all of a sudden you release that pressure and it all comes out. So better in the pan than all over the garage floor. Just a point worth remembering is I read somewhere that apparently pets, cats and dogs love coolant or love antifreeze. So if you've got any pets or there's pets in the area and you spill any of this stuff, make sure you clean it up pretty quick, because yeah, apparently it's not very good for them, but they do like to drink it. Sorry, I heard. Okay, so that's the worst of it. We can put the milk carton down now. And yeah, the cooling system's not huge on this, it doesn't hold an awful lot. So what you do now is stand up and upend the bike on its stand. Oops, on its stand. You're gonna have to take my word for this because I can't do this one-handed. So yeah, what I'm going to do is just lift the bike up straight, reposition the pan, and give the hoses a bit of a squeeze just to get the most of the coolant out. So I'll do that now, and then I'll show you the next stage. Okay, so we're just down to a few drips now. So that's pretty much empty, or that is empty. So pop it back on its side stand, and then we can fit the drain screw back in. And just worth remembering that there should also be a sealing washer too. Make sure you haven't lost it. See, mine's stuck to the side of the case there, so just make sure it's back in, and if it's perished, you'll need to get a new one from Suzuki or wherever to replace it. So yeah, we can put the screw back in now. Okay. Okay, and just nip him up. He doesn't need to be too tight. It's only a small screw. Just nip him up. That's it. And now it's time to refill the system. So you can see I've removed the filler cap completely. It's a bit of a tight fit up against the bottom of the fuel tank there, but it comes out if you give it a bit of a precision wiggle. So this is where we now use the homemade funnel, and that'll just pop in there nicely like that. And yeah, I think from memory it's about 1.8 litres of coolant to fill the system. And the trick is, I mean, you don't have to measure out 1.8 litres. You just keep pouring it in until you can see it, you know, full in the top of the radiator there. You'll normally get a few air pockets, so you'll need to give the might need to give the hoses a bit of a squeeze, and also just rock the bike from side to side, and just keep checking and topping up. We'll get to that in a minute. So I'll just get the coolant ready to go. So yeah, this is a pre-mixed coolant. It was one of the cheaper ones in the store, but it says 3 year or 100,000 kilometers. That's about 60,000 miles. And I generally change it once a year. So if you're doing it that frequently, I really wouldn't bother spending, you know, lots of money on an expensive coolant, but entirely up to you. So anyway, lift this up, and the funnel's standing up by itself, so I'll see if I can do this one-handed. You get the idea. I'm gonna have to put the camera down to do this. So yeah, I'll show you when it's full. Okay, so I've overfilled it a little bit, and I spilt a little bit down on the floor there. I don't know how well you can see this with the camera, but it's just a little bit full. So I generally get the bottom radiator hose, and I'm giving it a squeeze. You can see the bubbling away there as it's just pushing the air pockets out. So yeah, do that for a bit, and then just take the bike and just rock it give it a bit of a rock from side to side, and then if the coolant levels drop in the radiator, then just repeat and just keep doing it until it settles down, till the level seems to level out, and it should just be covering the top of the fins in the radiator. I don't know how well you can see that here. So yeah, once you've got all the worst of the air bubbles out, then put the cap back on, start the bike, let it run for a few minutes, stop, let it cool down. Never open a radiator cap when the coolant's hot, because the coolant gets pressurized in there. So what happens is it lets it get hotter than it normally would before it boils, and if you then release that pressure, it'll try and boil up and spit out at you, and you can get some really nasty burns from hot coolant. So yeah, let it run for a bit, and then let it cool down for, you know, a good half an hour, 45 minutes, and then put a rag over your hand and gently crack the cap, and yeah, just check the level, and repeat as necessary if it's dropped, and then yeah, just refit your lower cover with your 2 bolts, and refit the top side fairing with your three little bolts, and yeah, job done, good to go.